Good evening, Wolfpack. Tonight we're going to be listening to one of my favorite stories, The Relatives Came by Cynthia Rylant. As we listen through this story, I want you to think about a relative that's very special to you, one that you enjoy to go see. And I want you to think about why you enjoy going to spend time and visit with them. Or maybe you don't visit them, but they visit you. So think about a relative who can either come see you or you can go see, and why. The Relatives Came by Cynthia Rylant, illustrated by Stephen Gammell. It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple, enough to pick, but not quite. So what time of year is our story taking place in? They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car. And in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches, and up they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. Have you ever gotten up that early for something? They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. What kind of emotion do you think the relatives are feeling? So they drank up all their pop, and they ate up all their crackers, and they traveled up those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. If you were a character right now, how would you feel? Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us up against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged for hours. Then it was into the house, and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get to the kitchen, to the front room. Those relatives. And finally, after a big supper 2 or 3 times around until we got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk. And we were in 2s and 3s through the house. What do you think they were talking about? The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was a good thing since there weren't any extras. So a few squeezed in with us and the rest slept on the floor, some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different going to sleep with all the new breathing in the house. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. Do you think anybody's getting aggravated or upset with another relative? Why? They ate up all our strawberries and melons, then promised we could eat up all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. What's your favorite fruit? But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chests and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road, then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet. We all slept. Why on earth would the beds be too quiet? And the relatives drove on all day and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains. And they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them. And they missed us. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about next summer. The end. So now that we've read this book, which received a very special award, I want to see if you can find out what book or what award this book received. You see the symbol here, so if you just Google it, you might can find that out. But another activity you could do, you could think about somebody that's really special in your family that you would like to go see, or have you come see, or have them come see you, and I want you to draw or write them a letter. And I know right now it might be hard to mail that to them, but think about a different way that you could do it. Maybe you could send a picture of it to them, email it to them, text it, or maybe you could hold it and give it to them when things get better. So I hope you enjoyed The Relatives Came, one of Miss Wallace's favorite books, and I hope you have a great night, Wolfpack. Good night.